Matthew 7:28. Kai egeneta, hate etelesin ha Jesus tus lagus tutus, exe plesanta hoi achoi epite didache autu. Here we read, and it came about, or it happened, or King James, and it came to pass, when Jesus finished these words. And if you've read through Matthew carefully, you know that this is an expression that came about when that Jesus finished right here, and finished this words, finished this teaching, that you find repeated at the end of the discourse units, at the end of the large teaching sections in the gospel. So at 11:1, 13:5, 19:1, 26:1, and here in Matthew 7:28, marking the end of those 5 large teaching sections, as Olmsted notes in his Baylor Handbook, and as many other scholars have noted. So we continue. It came about when Jesus finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. The crowds were amazed at his teaching. All right, let's look at a few things. Let's begin by looking at this ex plesanta. You notice it has a prepositional prefix. The ek has become ex when an augment was added in there. And you see sigmas, but that's part of the lexical form. This is from the verb. If you look it up in a good lexicon like BDAG, it's listed as ek pleso. Interestingly, though, it notes in the lexicon entry in BDAG that this word only occurs in the middle passive forms, both in the Septuagint and in the New Testament. So there's a question as to whether it should be listed according to its active form. The form here is it's an imperfect, middle, indicative, third person plural. Third person plural because the subject is the crowds. The crowds were amazed. Now, we know the default tense for narrative is the aorist, right? Here's an aorist here. So why the imperfect here? Is he emphasizing the ongoing amazement of the crowd, or, why? Well, I searched on ek pleso in the New Testament, and it occurs 13 times. 12 times it is a present or imperfect form. So probably it has to do with just the very nature of the verbal activity here of being amazed. It's something more open-ended that you don't really usually think of when you talk about amazement. You don't really think about the beginning or the ending of that action. So the imperfective aspect, which would be the present and the imperfect tense, fit better just with the procedural nature, the very nature of that verbal activity. The one form of ek pleso that is not present or imperfect is in Luke 2:48. And this is where Mary and Joseph, after they've been looking for Jesus for several days, they see him. Finally, there he is. And it says they were stunned or amazed, and that is the aorist form. And you can see how that description right there in Luke 2:48 might fit with more viewing the action as a whole, including the beginning and ending, rather than a little bit more of an open-ended presentation.